Ichimon Japan is made possible in part by Patreon support. And I would like to say welcome and thank you to Nicholas Andriani, our latest patron. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for joining the $3 a month plus alpha tier. That gives Nicholas access to Japanese Plus Alpha, my podcast about the Japanese language that I release on a monthly basis. The latest episode is about the words kaze and kaze. So in Japanese, the words kaze and kaze mean the common cold and wind. They both sound exactly the same, and there's an interesting relationship between those two words. So if you want to find out about that, head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon, sign up for the Plus Alpha tier. You can also join for as little as $1 a month. And if you want to support the show by picking up a t-shirt or a hat, then go check out kimitodesigns.com. I have a question for you. Would you say that bears are an annoying part of living in Japan?
This year, yes. They're apparently all over the dang place.
Okay, bears have made it onto the list.
Yeah, bears just, no matter where you go in Japan, there's just bears everywhere.
Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony and
I'm Ryan.
So, Ichimon means one question, and every episode we ask a question about Japan. Today's question is, what annoys you about living in Japan? Part 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, there is a part 1, and while you don't have to listen to it to get what we're going to be talking about here because it's totally different things, you should go back and check it. I think it's a fun episode. And we bring up a lot of interesting things. I think that a couple of which, at least, a lot of people don't talk about too much. I think there's some
definitely
unique things there. But yeah, so again, just like we said in part 1, we do enjoy Japan. And while I'm not living there anymore, I definitely enjoyed my time there. And I am not ruling it out of the realm of possibilities that someday I may live there again. But
and I need to point out, just because I'm currently still in Japan, so if the people of my host country hear this, it was Tony's idea for a part 2.
Yeah, I just had to get it out of my system. Although some of these ideas are yours.
Japan's fine. You're like, no, I got more.
Yeah. So anyway, we both like Japan, but nowhere is perfect. And just when you spend time there, you do notice little things that go like, why are you doing it this way? Or why is this like this? It could be better. And that's just, that's what we're going to do. And also try to figure out sometimes why.
I will point out one of the fun things of living abroad is if you go back to your original country, then you'll have that, why are you doing it this way? There's better ways to do it when you go back to your original country that you never thought of before.
Definitely. I've had it both ways. Absolutely. Yes.
And so, then the sad thing is you realize no country's perfect and you feel out of place everywhere.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. So
it really is exactly that.
Yeah. It's like different things are horrible in each country, and that's just the reality of it. But there's also different wonderful things about each place.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, let's do the first one, which is one that Ryan thought of.
Yeah, so this is, I guess you don't have to be in Japan for this because it's the English version of Japanese websites being useless.
Yeah, this happens a lot. I've noticed it too. Explain.
So the most recent way this happened was two things for me. I was looking for a museum to go to, and they, at the very top, like many Japanese websites, it's like, read in English. And because I don't, I know the words for certain classical periods or historical figures, but I don't really know their kanji because I don't read history that much. I was like, I'll see what their upcoming article or events are in English. So I clicked it. It had not been updated in many, many years, maybe a decade.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when this is going up, but currently Corona is still an issue. So I wasn't even sure if they would be open or if they'd have reduced things. No mention of that whatsoever in English.
Yeah.
And it's just the most general thing. We are a museum. Come to learn about Japanese history.
Yes.
It's okay. What kind of history?
Yep. Yeah.
We are a museum. Come to learn about Japanese history.
We exist. I mean, that's kind of what these pages are. They're almost like placeholder things just to say this exists. But if you want to find out anything more specific, too bad.
Yeah. They often redirect you to a completely different, much less useful website.
Yeah. Sometimes they even actually have a different layout. They'll look different. It's even confusing because you go wait, is this the same place? What's going on here?
So another one that happened was just like this week. I actually ordered a second bass guitar, and the website was Japanese because I'm ordering it from Japan. And I don't like. There's certain particulars I wanted to make sure of that I don't know their Japanese names. So I'm like, oh, they have an English button. I'll click it. Even though the bass was already in my shopping cart, it removed links to shopping carts, and was just like, oh, if you are ordering from overseas, please don't use our website, but call us directly. I was like, but I'm not ordering from overseas. I just want to order in English in Japan.
Yeah. I think they're still trying to, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it just seems like they need something rather than nothing, like to have some sort of presence for the people that can't speak any Japanese. But unfortunately, those websites are not always that useful. So
yeah, they have an annoying tendency to assume English means you are not within Japan.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I probably most of those websites are targeted specifically at like inbound tourists, but there's plenty of people within Japan that, they want that same information. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It comes up with hotel websites a lot too. Once I was trying to help my parents book something.
Yeah. I've had that issue too.
Basically, if you're in Japan, you don't really need to like give a credit card or anything. You just give them your name and you can make your reservation.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is nice because my parents were trying to book a hotel when they came, and it was like asking them for like their passport stuff. I was like, oh, don't worry about that. I'll just do it on the Japanese website later, and you won't need to worry about any of it.
Yeah. One time I ended up, I was trying to reserve a hotel in Osaka from here in Hawaii. So what I did was I must have used Skype or something to call them and just put my name down, because I didn't want to go through the whole process.
Yeah, so. I've done that too. It's like, oh, enter your this code. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Give me your phone number. I'm coming in a week. My name's Ryan. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I had to end up canceling that hotel. And I just called them again, and they took my name off. No fee, no nothing, no credit card. It was super easy.
Hotel reservations are great here.
Yeah. If you can speak Japanese. Otherwise, maybe they're not so, I don't know, friendly. Maybe it depends on the hotel. But
they try to have an English speaker, but the quality of their English speaker varies greatly.
All right, so let's get to the next one, which is perfect. That's related to that. All right, okay, so yeah. I can introduce this one. So I think anybody that has heard of the term English is familiar with what I'm talking about. But as you walk around Japan, and this is applicable to tourists as well, not just people living in Japan, but as you're walking around Japan, you're bound to see signs that have both English and Japanese. And a lot of times, I think it's not rare at all to see that the English is kind of funny, right? There's something weird about the translation. Sometimes it's
only in English.
And like, I would say most of the time you can kind of get the idea of what they're trying to say. It's not too difficult to figure out, but a lot of times it's just funny. It's just like weird. And a lot of times it's funny to the point where they're saying something totally different. It's just really... it can be confusing or just like hilarious because it's just so different. And the reason why I bring this up is not because I don't like this. I actually kind of love this. I love stumbling across a sign. It's like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And not because I'm laughing at the person necessarily, but rather because like I would never be able to come up with some of the phrasing that is used in these signs. And I love like this sort of incredible use of language. It's
the perfect example of why you should never trust Google Translate.
Yes, exactly. But which brings me to my point of like, why am I bringing this up? Because, not everybody will always get the message that is trying to be, put forth in these signs, when like these businesses could find someone or find a way to just make sure, just give a quick check, get a native speaker to take a quick look at this and make sure that they're saying what they want to say rather than some ridiculous thing. And so it annoys me that there's something going on there where these businesses or these people are thinking like, this is good enough, or Google Translate will get it right, or my son who had no interest in English but had an English dictionary, can translate for me. Right?
Yeah, The messages themselves are funny. I think the thing that is irritating is the attitude about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever like pointed it out to like a mom and like any sort of small shop where you could talk to the person who made it?
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, I love that these exist, but the fact that they don't stop 1 second to think like, oh, this could affect my business and my like public image, or maybe I'm losing out on customers because I'm not getting the thing that I want them to understand across. Like that's kind of annoying, almost kind of like saddening for me because it's
Yeah.
affecting them ultimately, right? But for example, let's give just a few examples of these, just in case there is anybody out there. I doubt it, but just in case there's anybody out there that is unaware of what kind of silly examples, silly sentences you can get. Ryan, would you mind reading some of these examples?
Okay, so our first one seems to be like a restaurant, and there's
Yeah.
no Japanese here. It just says,
Mhm.
only the person who ordered a buffet is eaten.
So I'm assuming that what happened was taberareru, which can be the passive form and the potential form. So can eat. Probably they used like Google Translate or something like that. And instead of translated into the potential form, only the person who paid for the buffet can
Can't
eat.
eat.
It ended up being translated as the passive form, which is, you're eating the person, right?
So just don't order the buffet, and then you get to eat all the people who did order the buffet you want.
Yeah. Which again, hilarious. I love this stuff, but it doesn't look good for the business that is doing this, right? Anyway,
Where did you
what's
find
another
this picture? Because like the food around it looks like this would be an advertisement on their website, not like actually about the sign.
I think I just looked up like funny Japanese signs or
Okay.
something like that. Anyway, what's the next one?
So the next one does have Japanese, which is basically saying there has been the Japanese says there's been a problem with chikan, which is what they
Like
in English I think they
groper.
call them like molesters or something awkward.
Yeah, groper,
Oh, there you
molester,
go.
pervert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically people who grab women, usually on trains.
Yeah.
Below that in English it says warn a pervert. So I guess because there's so many chikan, we have to look out for them and help them not get caught or something.
Exactly. See? And again, it's hilarious, but it makes I guess the business or maybe the train station or whatever, it makes them look bad, unfortunately,
Yeah.
And one more that I found on Twitter just really recently. This was before I came up with this idea, but it was in my Twitter feed and I thought it was amusing. So go ahead.
Okay, so the last one is zoomed in, so I'm not entirely certain what this is. Is this like a tourist place?
I think it was like a hiking trail or something.
Okay, it's some kind of hiking trail.
Yeah.
And basically says, in an emergency, reverse running is allowed.
So again, you get the idea. You kind of understand what they're trying to say, but
there is a little picture of two guys running away from a volcano, so I guess that's what it means.
yeah. I maybe it's a trail leading to a volcano or near a volcano. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, because the picture's zoomed in, you can see the trail in the corner, but you can't really see where it's going.
Yeah. But again, because like this is a serious thing, right? This is an emergency notification. It looks bad that they would have this kind of silly English thing. And so, while yes, I will always laugh at this because I love this sort of thing. In terms of how it makes the person behind the sign look, not great. They could do better. But all that being said, every time I find a T-shirt with this sort of crazy English on it, I will pretty much always buy it. So
yeah, okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. When I was in Osaka, still a friend of mine and I that lived there, we had like a night out with just friends on like Friday night, and on the spot we decided to make a buy the worst English T-shirt you could find competition.
I love this.
And he won. It's been like a decade, so I don't remember exactly what it said. It was like a golfing shirt that was like the Nirvana of the green, pro putting, tour it was just like complete insane garbage.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, like some of these, I can't even figure out like how you would get what they're saying from a literal translation. It seems like they start with a ridiculous idea in Japanese and then run it through like Google Translate.
Okay, so the best I can say is because sometimes my students produce this and I've asked them and they look up a word in a dictionary and for whatever reason, they don't pick entry 1. They take like entry 5 or 6. And it's like, why did you pick that one? And sometimes like, oh, because it was like less letters. And sometimes just because like, oh, it looked more kakui. It's like, as anyone who's used a dictionary knows, like the lower entries are usually the more specialized low frequency words. So they just end up with weird stuff.
One T-shirt that I have in my closet right now says, "Music keep my mind of the clouds of reality." There you go. And then one quick story. All the way, this was probably like 20 years ago at this point, a little bit less, but a friend of mine came back from Japan and gave me one of these crazy English t-shirts. And on the back, this was a very well-known like thing. I saw this on the internet before I got this t-shirt, but the t-shirt on the back in huge text said, I hate myself and I want to die, which totally grammatical, totally fine. But it's not, normally I think most people would not wear that in huge letters on their t-shirt. But I was wearing this t-shirt. I liked it. I thought it was funny. I didn't actually hate myself, nor did I want to die.
So you're a liar.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny. And I was at Taco Bell. And then this lady, she starts talking to me, it's like, oh, you shouldn't wear something like that. You should, be more proud of yourself. This is not good. Like, oh, you should, just be happy. You don't have to say like it. She was trying to like, I guess, give me a pep talk.
You're like, no, leave me alone, lady. I can hate myself if I want to.
And
I enjoy hating myself.
I think I just ended up saying like, oh, okay, thank you. I didn't get into a whole explanation of, well, you see, miss, so yeah, anyway, sorry. English, funny English. I think Japan could do better, which at the same time would kind of sadden me. But anyway.
I will say recently there's been a move to internationalize more. So for one, I do think the English has improved, but now there's also Korean and Chinese frequently. And I really wonder if they have the same issue in those languages.
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't surprise me if they...
Because it's not rare for Japanese people to just be like, Chinese uses the same kanji, so it'll be fine. But then like, it's not the same kanji.
Yeah. All right. Then, well, okay, fine. You're the master of segues today, Ryan. Let's talk about Chinese.
So this is another one. This one's so particular. I feel like most people will never care about this, but it bothers me.
Yeah, I know. But when you said it, I was like, yes, I've experienced this.
So because Japanese and Chinese both share kanji. Kind of. It's kind of complicated to go into it, but some of the kanji are directly shared, some of them are a little altered. Japanese has the tendency to use the Japanese pronunciation for Chinese names, which makes them sound very strange and very different.
Yeah.
So, small trivia about me, why this matters to me. I'm actually a fan of like the ancient Three Kingdoms Chinese era history stuff, which is pretty much unknown in the West, but fairly popular in Japan, but all the names are different. Like in English, they just use the Chinese names.
Yeah, it's super confusing.
Yeah, but in Japanese, they use weird, unpronounceable stuff. It's even more annoying now, because like the more I'm learning, it makes less sense, because like, oh, we use the Japanese pronunciation on this archaic kanji that we don't use in Japanese. Then why are you using it?
Yes. So this is a really funny, quirky thing where it seems like entertainers are kind of exempt to this rule generally. For example, like was it like the well-known actor Chow Yun-fat? You don't see him these days so much, but he was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. His reading is very close to the Chow Yun-fat, which is based on the Chinese reading, and I don't know Chinese, so I can't read it the proper way. But the Japanese reading is quite close. But what I've noticed is that politicians, especially from China.
Yes.
Like they totally
I will throw out real quick, since Chow Yun-fat might not be that famous nowadays. Jackie Chan is still Jackie Chan in Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jackie. I think they pronounce it Chen. I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But right. It's close enough where you won't have any trouble, understanding what they're saying. So anyway, yeah. With politicians like Chinese, prominent political figures, they follow the Japanese pronunciation of the kanji that are used in their name rather than the something approximating the Chinese pronunciation of their Chinese name. So, for example, can you give?
Yeah. So, for example, the most famous one probably Xi Jinping is Xu Qinpei.
Yeah. So the first time you hear that when you're watching Japanese news and you hear Xu Qinpei, it's like, who is that? Who the hell is that?
And then they're like showing a picture of Xi Jinping. You're like, why are they using that other name?
Yeah, and eventually, like you figure it out by context, or because you figure it out, like you look it up or whatever. But especially if you're just listening, you go like, "Wait, who is that?" Right?
Yeah, they also do it for like place names too. So if you know any Chinese geography, that'll be useless for you living in Japan.
Yeah. That happens a lot too. What's another one? Hu Jintao.
Hu Jintao is Kokinto.
Yeah, kokinto. Yeah.
Kokinto.
Kokinto. Yeah. Yeah. So it doesn't sound anything like, the Chinese pronunciation or the something like the Chinese pronunciation which we are using in English, right? So again, totally confusing. One more. What about Mao Zedong? Of course, very, very, very well known figure, controversial figure, blah blah blah. But that's not the point. How would you pronounce his name in Japanese?
Mo Takuto.
All right. So pretty different. Still kind of close, but yeah, different enough where I think it's confusing for most people the first time they were.
Mo to Mao is kind of similar, but Zedong to
and then
Takuto.
The rest, no. Yeah, the rest, no. Yeah. So something really interesting that happens because of this, and I was talking to a Japanese person here in Hawaii, but for example, if this is again pretty unique, not a lot of people will experience this, but when a Japanese person comes to the US, and then for example, if they have to study world history and they have to learn like a bunch of Chinese names in English, it's super confusing for them.
That's how I feel now trying to learn Chinese history here.
Yeah. Because they all know it by their pronunciation, but we're using something based on the Chinese pronunciation. So either way, whether it's us going to Japan to learn about China or read about Chinese politics or something confusing, or Japanese people coming here and then they hear Chinese names, super confusing. So it's an annoying quirk of Japan that I don't know. Yeah, it just is what it is.
It also, I don't think Japanese people perceive of it this way, but it feels kind of rude to me because it's not just politicians. Like if you're an immigrant from China to Japan, you're like, hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. And then the Japanese are like, we were going to call you this instead.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they can get, similar pronunciation. It's certainly possible. Yes, the Japanese phonetic system doesn't match up with the Chinese phonetic system, and nor does the English phonetic system. But you can still approach something pretty close.
Like, Japanese is not tonal, so it's never going to be exactly, but it could be, it could at least resemble their name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know. It's suffice it to say, it's just confusing, and you just have to learn those things if it's something that interests you. Now, yes, you can get by without learning any of it, but that makes watching the news a little more confusing. Anyway, let's move on to the t-shirt one then. This one is one that I brought up, so I guess I should explain then. So for the most part, finding clothes in Japan is not like a huge problem. You can generally find clothes, but there's something
these things called clothing stores. Most cities have them.
Yes. But there's just something that always annoyed me about shirts in Japan.
Yes.
And it's I actually didn't ask you if you've experienced this, Ryan, but please tell me once I'm done. Oh, you have? Okay.
Well, I'll go into my story after you.
Okay, perfect. So two things that I've noticed about Japanese t-shirts, both long sleeve and short sleeve. Number one, the long sleeves have shorter sleeves generally than the American long sleeves that I'm used to using. So where if I were to put on an American long sleeve shirt, the long sleeve would go like beyond my wrist up until like the very, very start of the top of the hand, I guess. And even if I extend my hand, there would still be enough slack there where it wouldn't like run up my arm. But with the Japanese long sleeve t-shirts, a lot of times, even when I'm not extending fully, it's a little bit above my wrist. And so I really find that annoying because I find that's not what a long sleeve should be to me. And then the other thing that I found, and this is for both long sleeve and short sleeve, how can I put it? The vertical length from the neck to the bottom seam is shorter in a lot of Japanese t-shirts. So what happens is when I'm standing up or sitting up properly, like proper posture, like already the bottom of the t-shirt is about to show off like my midriff. And then if I like lift up my arms and like stretch, you're looking at my belly button. So, and this is not something that happens in pretty much any American t-shirt that I own. So it's something that always annoys me. I always have to try on shirts before I buy anything in Japan. And I'm very picky because even if I love a design, I know a lot of times many t-shirts in Japan will have this problem. And I don't want to be showing off my midriff when I'm wearing a t-shirt. So
you should have more confidence, man.
I mean, I could. It's not a confidence issue. It's really more of a. It's more of a. I understand people don't want to see that thing down there. So, yeah. Anyway, so have you had this experience then as well?
So yeah, I mean, I think everything you're describing is correct. The sizes are so. I guess there's two issues. One is that the sizes are generally a bit shifted.
Mm-hmm.
So like if it is an international shirt and let's say it was a large in the West, they'll actually sometimes put a sticker over the tag to make it now an extra large in Japan.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if even beyond that, I guess just the fashion's different here where things generally tend to be slimmer and tighter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the sleeves will be shorter and it doesn't go down quite the right length, even if it is the size they expect you to use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then if you try to compensate by going up a size, then like the shoulders are like too wide. Like just the proportions are different with a lot of shirts. Not 100%, but a lot of times. I think like some Uniqlo shirts are tailored more to the kind of American proportions. Okay. So I do have a couple of shirts that I bought from Uniqlo that have the longer vertical length. So
I have seen a lot of variation too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like even with like shorts and pants too. Sometimes what they call a large or a medium or whatever is completely different than what another company does. But that happens everywhere, I guess.
Yeah. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about this and see, I don't know, maybe it's just in my head. Maybe this is just something that totally accidental that like it's just some freak thing that I've happened to come across. But no, this is like an actual documented thing. The proportions for a lot of Japanese t-shirts are different. And I found some measurements too. So Ryan, would you mind introducing like what these differences are?
So we have comparisons on medium-sized shirts. Mm-hmm. So for the Japanese medium, the vertical length is 67 centimeters, where the American is 73.5.
Okay, so that is a little over 6 centimeters in length difference.
Yeah, pretty significant.
Right? That's a little under 3 inches or around 3 inches. I guess.
Yeah. So not to me, it feels like it is like you described, like the extra that would keep it from like exposing your stomach if you were stretching.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Which is about 3 inches. It also, I will admit, I'll say it after. The width for the Japanese M is 50 centimeters and the American M is 51.
Okay, so that's much less. And I generally don't have any problems with the width. I'm a fairly thin, I guess, guy. I'm not particularly big, so I guess that's not really an issue for me. But really, the big difference is in the length or the vertical length.
Yeah. So to go back to my story a little bit, because I'm kind of proud of this story. In the last 2 years, I've managed to lose 30 kilograms living in Japan.
Yeah.
So I went from where I definitely had to wear Western clothes that like my parents would send to me or ordered online to actually being able to wear the Japanese stuff.
And that's great.
It takes getting used to because the fit is definitely different. Mm-hmm. And we're mostly talking about shirts, but even like the pants, like even if they're the right size, they tend to be like tighter.
Yeah.
Where Western stuff tends to be more looser. But once you get used to it, like, because I've gotten used to it now the Western stuff feels really large and baggy on me.
Yeah.
So it is just like a personal preference if you like it tighter or not. It is more difficult to use Japanese stuff if you're overweight, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, for example, that vertical length thing, if you, for example, have a big midsection, that would make that problem even worse, right? So... yeah, that would be annoying.
Yeah, I'm a little tall by Western standards, very tall by Japanese. So I pretty much have to get X or LL, which is XL here, or L no matter what, even if the other stuff would fit better just because the length is too short.
Yeah. That article that I found, which had all these measurements, I will include a link, of course, in the show notes, but that mentioned that the reason for this was like due to different body proportions in like the West versus Japan. Maybe, I guess, but like
I think they're imagining it because it looks tight on Japanese people. I think Japanese fashion just is used to having tighter clothes.
Yeah, like what immediately what I thought was like, okay, so do Japanese people then have like torsos that are 6.5 centimeters shorter than the average Westerner of the same height? Is that what they're trying to say there? Like, to me, it didn't really, I don't know. That didn't quite
Yeah, to me, this
convince me.
screams like it's something they just did in the past, and now they're trying to
Yeah.
look for a reason to like retroactively explain it when really they don't have one.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I don't know. It's just it is what it is, and so you just have to like try on clothes to make sure that it fits you well,
Yeah,
because yeah, you
I
do
will
find
say
exceptions, but yeah.
my Japanese made like work shirts do come
Mm.
untucked constantly, and
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
not only me that has that issue.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would always buy work shirts in the US when I would go back every summer.
uh, I do like the length, but the sleeves in the US are so big on me now, like the width of the sleeves.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, preference, Anyway, let's take a break here and we'll be back with a few more of these. Hey, just a quick reminder. I'm still looking for funny or embarrassing Japanese mistake stories. I want to do a part 2 to that episode, which just came out, like maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago. And I did get a few submissions from a couple listeners, and I will be using those, but I still want a few more. So if you've ever made a funny or embarrassing Japanese mistake, send it to me by the end of January 2021, ichimon@japankyo.com. You can write it up or you can record it on your phone and send it to me. Again, ichimon@japankyo.com. I really want more stories so we can use that in the part 2, and then we can release that in the next few months. So again, think about it, send it over. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your stories. And another reminder, the latest episode of Japan Station just came out a few days ago. It features a really funny, interesting guest. Her name is Donna Burke. She is a voice actor and singer who has worked on tons of really prominent Japanese video games like Metal Gear Solid 5, Silent Hill 2 and 3. She's also done tons of Japanese commercials, but she is perhaps best known as the voice of the Shinkansen in English in Japan. So of course the Shinkansen is the bullet train in Japan, and she does the English language announcements. So if you've ever been on the Shinkansen in Japan, you've heard her voice. Also, she's a really funny person. So go check that out. Again, episode 56, you can find it at japanstationpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so here's one that I actually have personal experience with. So when I moved to Japan in 2010, I was with the JET program, so they set me up in an apartment, but the apartment did not have internet, and so I had to go to the local denkiya, I guess what is that? The electronics store, I
I
guess
like
you'd
how my
say.
students translate just the electric store,
The electric store,
where you
yeah.
can go buy your electric. Give me 3 electric, please.
So I went to Yamada Electric Store, and and so they have like little kiosk areas where you go to whatever ISP
Yeah, they got
and
like
you
phones
sign
and
up.
all stuff there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I'm talking to the guy, and at this point, like I can speak Japanese well enough to do all this without really any major issues. So I'm talking to the guy, and then they tell me it's going to be. I don't remember exactly how long it was going to be, but it was going to be far longer than I thought should that it was going to be far longer than I thought it should be. It was going to be anywhere from like maybe 10 to 14 days, something around there. And I did a few things to try to speed this up. I do want to give a little bit of context here, but some people might say, number one, use your smartphone. Well, for one, I didn't have a smartphone at the time. Number two, then take your laptop to a cafe. Well, I'm legally blind and I use certain software on my computer, and it makes it very, very annoying to go out to a cafe to try to do this. It's just not practical for me.
You don't even
So
need those excuses. I'm already on board with you. That's unacceptable.
Okay. So, I need internet at home to do things, right? From work to just,
Life is impossible
normal things.
without internet.
Yeah.
Luckily we're a podcast, so our audience probably agrees with us.
Yes, yes. Unless somebody is like reading the Telegram version or something of this, but anyway, so I need internet even though this was like 10 years ago, and so I can't do this. I can't do 10, 14 days. This is not going to work for me. So I leave and I call and I go to a different ISP, I think, and I get an estimate for how long it's going to take, and then they tell me like maybe 2 days faster. And so then I go back to the first one because for whatever reason, I think I wanted that first ISP. And so I go back to the first one and I talk to them and I tell them, look, this other ISP is telling me that they can do this 2 days faster. Tell me that you can do this faster or I'm going with someone else. which is such a like a-hole thing to do in Japan, I guess.
It is
Especially.
not a common thing in Japan.
Yeah, you get this foreigner like giving you an ultimatum, right? But I need this internet, so I'm pushing these like social boundaries here, and so eventually, I'm pretty sure that I did end up getting it like a little bit faster, maybe like 1 or 2 days faster than the original estimate. But what I ended up doing, because that was still like a week or more of no internet, I got one of these little like portable Wi-Fi hotspot things just for a month. So I signed up for it and I used that during the week. And then at the end of the month, I returned it. But by that point, I already had my normal internet. So, so this is all to say that you do hear stories of it being like annoyingly slow to get your internet set up in Japan. And I can't say that this is still totally happening everywhere across Japan because my experience happened about 10 years ago as of the time of this recording. But Ryan, have you heard other similar kind of slow experiences like this?
I've heard this story many, many times. I generally hear if you're, especially, so 10 years ago, I was also living in like a urban area similar to you. Mm-hmm. And I think slow was considered like a week to two. Now I live more in the countryside. And sometimes, so this didn't happen to me. All the buildings I've moved into either had internet already set up when I moved in or had it set up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I've heard some people actually needed to have companies like physically wire their buildings to have like the coaxial port, and that could take a long time.
Yeah.
And I've had people who I think, to leave it anonymous, will say, went about trying to get internet in a strange way.
Yeah, sometimes I look, I don't know how Japanese people do it, but in my opinion, sometimes you do have to be a little pushy. And I guess maybe having a high degree of Japanese proficiency can make that easier because you can be very clear in what you're saying. But for the most part, I mean, getting internet, you can, get by even if you don't know that much Japanese, right? So
yeah, I think where I live now, the biggest delay, I actually just remembered a friend got new internet like a month ago, is people who are not confident enough in their Japanese usually try to organize someone who works with them to help them. And sometimes they end up waiting like a week or two for that. And then they have the extra week or two after that.
Yeah. Sadly, that is an extra complicating factor that can come into play. Yeah.
In case any of you are ever planning to become like JET or something similar in Japan, if you have any Japanese, even very low, it's probably enough. All you need to really be able to say is like, internet onegai shimasu, and then like write down your address.
Yeah.
And they'll say a whole bunch of things you won't understand, just nod and smile, and then like say itsu desu ka and have them point to a calendar.
Yeah, exactly. Take a dictionary on your phone or whatever, and you can do it. You can do it. It'll maybe take you 10 minutes longer than it would a Japanese person, but you can do it. Just bulldozer your way through it.
I'm sure Tony also appreciates like achieving proficiency in Japanese, but along the way you realize you can accomplish almost everything at very, very bare minimum levels.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you put yourself in those kinds of difficult situations,
you improve from it.
End up learning more words. So definitely, yeah.
I remember I learned the word delivery because I was buying furniture, and they asked me like what something day was good, and I was like, that must mean delivery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And see, you remember that. You remember that very clearly. So, yeah, definitely. It's uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is good because that means you're trying and learning. So, yeah. All right, next one. We're just this one's kind of general, but we will focus on maybe just a couple things here. Noise in Japan. Now, that's not to say that everywhere in Japan is noisy and that other places are not noisy, but
honestly, most of Japan's pretty quiet, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. But, certain places, especially in the city, they can get noisy for various reasons. One that I think a lot of people mention, and this is both Japanese people and foreigners, politicians. So when you get into election season in Japan, something that happens is that they will drive around, like these politicians will drive around in cars with like megaphones and be giving like these very politician kind of speeches. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu, whatever, they're asking for your vote. And they'll do this pretty early in the morning. So if you happen to live maybe near a main road or one of these places where one of these cars might pass by, you might be woken up by this. And I've heard many stories of people that have, been in this kind of experience. Thankfully, both places that I've lived in Japan were kind of a little bit out of the way, even though still in pretty, city areas, but not in the main parts. So I didn't really have to deal with this, thankfully. So, but it definitely does happen. Ryan, have you had to deal with this?
So I've seen this. Again, I used to live in a more urban area in Osaka. Now I live more rural. I've actually experienced this in the rural area. It wasn't near my house, though. They were doing it like kind of at the major crossroads between two of our biggest streets, which aren't even big streets where I live. In the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, because it was like the biggest space they had. But yeah, they were on their megaphones. I went to a bank nearby and I could hear them, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, the stereotype is kind of like in front of stations with megaphones giving speeches or whatever. I gotta be honest, I feel like you're losing votes if you're waking people up at like 6 a.m. to do this, because I'm definitely not voting for you.
Could be.
Another thing very similar I've seen is mostly in Tokyo, certain shops, for whatever reason, think it's a good idea to scream at customers on the street with a megaphone.
There
was some electronic shop that was doing this, and like I was going to the shop as they were doing it, and when you're close, it's just like a garbled, echoey mess. I couldn't even tell what he was saying.
Like I think when it's so loud that it's like that, and that does happen, Osaka, I've seen that happen too, especially like maybe you go to like Shinsaibashi or one of these like crowded shopping areas, it happens. When it's just like a person, kind of yelling, say, "Irashaimase," whatever, time say it, or there's that time when they do like the special limited, like maybe they'll do a 1 hour discount sale, and they say time say it or something like that. That doesn't bother me so much. It's kind of just like it makes me feel like I'm in Japan. But when they start with the megaphones and it's like loud as hell, and like, that does annoy me a bit.
The one I experienced the most was in my old apartment in Osaka. I don't know if it was the same company or if it was just a trend, but some like second hand shop that sold like used like laundry machines and microwaves would always run their stupid truck with megaphones through the neighborhood at like 6 or 7 a.m. screaming like, "Ori kudasai," like sell us your stuff. And like, I literally want to just open my window and just yell, "Shut up!" at them. They did it like once a week.
Another thing that you see sometimes is like cars, again, with megaphones, like driving by populated areas to promote like a music album, like a new idol group. They have a new single, so they'll like drive around blaring that single and saying like, "Please buy it," or whatever. So that happens.
I actually had to have a interesting story with this. It just happened literally yesterday morning.
Okay.
For whatever reason, where I live, we've been infested with bears this like fall.
Yes, you have. I found one news story of there was a bear that broke its way into a mall in Kaga City in Ishikawa, right?
Yeah. So I guess that one like attacked 3 people at the end, and they had to put it down.
Oh man, yeah. But there's been like 3 or 4, I think, incidents in the past.
Oh no, there's been like, okay, I guess incidents. I don't know, sightings. There's been like one a day for the last 4 months.
Jeez, yeah. Okay.
There's just bears. I don't know if it's just like a couple very friendly bears. I don't know why they're coming to human places, or just like a whole bunch of bears.
But just for context, this is the fall of 2020.
Yes, and we don't know when this is going to go up. You're probably hearing this in like 2026.
Could be.
But anyway, so I live in what would probably be described in Western standards as like a suburban area. On the outskirts of the town, it's kind of rural. There's farmland and there's like forests around the edges. I'm like dead center though. I'm in like the most city area of this place. We don't have nature where I'm at. However, they found a bear literally in my neighborhood. Like, you know how they go from like district to whatever, like they get smaller blocks in Japanese addresses. In my exact area, there was a bear sighting in the night.
Whoa.
And then I guess they saw it again in the morning, which is really weird because it would have to cross a lot of civilization to get here.
Well, I mean, I guess it missed the last train, so it had to
it had to walk home. So the police were actually here kind of late at night, like because it was dangerous, being like, "There's a bear sighting, please don't go outside," on megaphones. Wow. And then probably around like 5 a.m. like, "Okay, we think it's gone." Like, oh, okay, but still like be careful and pay attention. But then I guess it came back because like in the late morning they were back, and 2 of my neighbors tried to go out to get food, and they said police were like downstairs in the lobby like, no, go back to your room. It's still in the area.
Okay, so number one reminder: we were talking about noise being an annoying thing in Japan, and Ryan just mentioned the megaphones of the police, so that's why we went down this tangent. Because I forgot for a moment.
Yes, so my story is they were using megaphones to scream at us in the nighttime and early morning. I mean, it's about bear warnings, which is More
Well,
relevant information than a flash sale.
yeah. But second here, I have a question for you. Would you say that bears are an annoying part of living in Japan?
This year, yes, they're apparently all over the dang place.
Okay, bears have made it onto the list.
So yeah, bears just no matter where you go in Japan, there's just bears everywhere.
Yeah. Just please be careful. Those bears are just, they stay out all night after they go drinking, and then they can't keep them under control.
It's what I think most like foreign people don't associate bears with Japan, and even I didn't until like I came here.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of bears. Like on the news you see like there's been a bear sighting. Some old woman like in a rice field got attacked by a bear. Like you hear those news
Yeah,
reports.
so the theory is that like because where I'm living, we're not really expanding into their territory. Like the city's not growing. So we think they just sometimes come down and eat human garbage, and then it tastes better than normal bear food. So then they want more of it.
Sure. Yeah, that's some delicious garbage.
Which I agree with them. I would rather have human garbage than like raw whatever bears eat.
Would you rather have like a leftover tuna mayo rice ball or acorns? I mean, come on.
That you just find. Well, I mean, depends on how left over.
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So noise. Yeah, that can be annoying sometimes, and sometimes it's okay. But anyway, moving on to the next one. TQB. So, what is a TQB, Ryan?
A day off.
Yeah, basically, it's like
I guess it's reserved rest day.
Yeah, I was gonna go with the literal. Yeah, thank you. So the te can mean like reserved, like you said, or like set.
Yeah.
Set. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Set. Q. Yes, like Q is from Yasumi, which is like day off, like, or off rest. Thank you. And B is day. So what this is a lot of times restaurants, especially like mom and pop kind of places, like really local shops, but sometimes even bigger places, they have like one day of the week, or maybe one day a month, or maybe 2 days a month. They have a certain day on a regular schedule that they're always going to be closed. When you're talking about a restaurant, usually it's like every Tuesday. A lot of times I think it's like Tuesdays or
Tuesdays and Wednesdays seem to be the common ones.
Yeah. And they'll always be closed that day, but every other day they're open, normal schedule. And the thing about this is that because this is not like, for example, in the West where businesses, banks, are open business hours from 9 to 5 or whatever, business hours from Monday to Friday, you know when to expect like a thing to be closed. But because this is like on a Tuesday or maybe a Wednesday and it can vary from business to business, sometimes you show up at the business and it's closed and you're totally disappointed and you go like, oh, I should have checked before I came. So yeah, it happens. I'm sure. I think this even came up once or twice on the podcast before, but Ryan, you've had experiences like that, right? Where you show up and it's been closed.
Not exactly take QB, but something very similar. My very first time I came to Japan, I came with a friend and we did like a 3-week, not exactly backpacking because they're trains, but just like traveling around Japan, staying in various places. And the day we went to Kyoto apparently was a holiday we didn't know about.
Oh, yeah.
So our plan was like, we're going to check into our hotel, then we'll go get some really cool, famous Kyoto food. Literally everything was closed.
Yeah, that happens. You got to be aware of the Japanese holidays when you come. Yeah, or when you go.
We didn't expect like restaurants to close, I guess. So we ended up going to 7-Eleven and having just like microwavable bento as our Kyoto meal before moving on.
But you and I, the last time that I was in Japan, had a take UV moment, right? When we were in Odaiba trying to go to a museum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't check. This is something that I try to remember, but I totally forgot. I didn't check. I didn't think of it at all. I had planned the whole day and we went to a bunch of places and we went and we showed up and it was closed.
It was like a Saturday too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Saturday. Yeah, and the thing about that take QB is I think that it was like a once a month kind of thing. It was not a weekly thing, but it was like every third Saturday of the month they're closed or something confusing like that. So you really got to be careful because you never know. It happens. It's happened to me more than once, definitely more than that time.
I will say I think these like interfere with your life much more when you're a tourist because now that I live here, like I'm aware of many places having take QB that don't matter at all to me.
Yeah.
Like my local magic shop, I think they take Tuesdays off, but like, I don't know. That doesn't feel like a very magic tournament day to me. It's always like Friday, Saturday, and Sundays.
Yeah. And I think something important to point out is that these are a lot of times how can I put it? Like, for example, the 7-Eleven that you mentioned, right? They don't have a
Yeah.
Takekyubi or like, these big chain places. I don't know,
The
like
bigger or more
Gusto
corporate they are, they
or
don't have it.
Pizzeria. They're not going to have Takekyubi, but the little shops, this is like their only day off, right? So this is
Yeah.
an important thing for them, and I'm totally fine with it. It's just that, unfortunately, when you're clueless and you just show up, sometimes you end up missing out. So yeah, and that can be annoying. So you should check if you're going to somewhere, maybe not a big chain kind of place that you would expect to be open all the time.
I don't know if this counts as Takekyubi, but small town Japan issues is sometimes even during their open hours, they're just not open because the owner decided to take a nap or something.
Yeah,
I've literally run into that. I went to an udon shop and it's like the sign says like open these hours and I'm in those hours and yet the door's locked.
Yeah, that does not surprise me at all. Yeah.
There was once we literally saw the chef sleeping like on inside through the window in one of the little like I'm forgetting English.
Counter?
One of the seats. One of the booths. There we go, the booth.
Oh, one of the booths. Yeah,
Yeah, he was just like literally laying down there sleeping. We're like, well, I guess we're not having karaage today.
Yeah, that's charming. That's charming. I'm fine with that.
It's the charm of small town Japan.
Yeah.
It's not common, but it happens occasionally.
Definitely, yeah. All right. So last thing that I thought of at least, but I guess this is not uniquely Japanese, but I definitely think that this comes up way more in Japan, and it's kind of the idea of it is far stronger. But the idea that sweets like cakes and things like that, chocolate, I guess, but really I seem to hear it more with like cakes and maybe ice cream, that women love cakes, that like guys are not into them at all, and that really this is such a like feminine thing. And so businesses try to cater to them, and like articles will say, well, as we all know, sweets are such a thing that our women are totally into, and this kind of like whole idea that guys are just not into sweets at all. I love cake, I love pie, I love ice cream. So.
I have definitely heard the saying or the assumption that women love sweets. I don't think I've personally experienced that men don't stereotype as much though.
Yeah, no, you do see it, and in articles, like I think I'll include a link to an article that I found on the subject, and it does mention how like, oh, guys are not as into it, and so
I guess the stereotype in Japan would be guys are more into like greasy yakiniku kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. So, for example, one thing that you see is that ramen shops, especially like the little local kind of maybe a little bit dirty kind of tiny ramen shop, you're going to see a lot. What?
So the good ones.
Yeah. Oh man, I love those. Yeah, I absolutely love those. There was one near where I studied abroad where it was basically like a little shack, and it was almost like a little like yatai, like a food stall. And that place was it seemed so dirty. They just had like paper towels for you to like wipe your mouth, and like the bottles of like mayonnaise or whatever, they were just out there. It was but it was awesome. Like the fried rice was so good.
Like ramen, like taste versus presentation is an inverse relationship.
Yeah.
If you find some dude that has like one of those like carts tied to his bike that he's riding around, that's the best ramen in the freaking prefecture.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, so places like that can be very awkward for a woman to enter by herself in Japan.
I mean, it's also full of drunken men usually.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like one of these things where the kind of prophecy is self-fulfilled, right? So guys like alcohol and food that is unhealthy. Women like cakes and cute things and tea and whatever. And well, I guess maybe you could argue that there is like that Venn diagram is somewhat accurate, but there's plenty of people in the middle of the Venn diagram that enjoy both. However, because it's awkward for a woman to go to this kind of place, then they will still end up going to the other kind of place, the more quote unquote feminine kind of place. And so it just kind of self-propagates. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely, especially the image of the ramen shop, I can imagine a woman not wanting to be harassed by a drunken man choosing to not go there.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they may love that unhealthy ramen as well.
Though I do say next time you visit, we are totally doing ramen and chocolate cake day.
I'm totally down for them, and I love Japanese cake. I like the thing about a lot of sweets in Japan is that, in my opinion, a lot of times sweets in the US are too sweet, but Japan generally gets it at right about the right level. So I'm totally happy with just about anything over there.
Do you like the pancakes?
Depends on the pancake.
Like not the normal one, the ones you go to restaurants and they're all like super fluffy.
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
They're not mind blowing, but yeah. I mean, there's some pancakes I like here in Hawaii. Go see our Hawaii episode of Ichimon Japan. So we talk about pancakes there. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted to find out if there is some sort of science behind this, if this is just some ridiculous stereotype that popped up out of nowhere. And so, Ryan, perhaps you've heard of the idea that women love chocolate, right? This is something that you do here in the US.
Yes.
So there is a little bit of overlap there, and there's some scientific research that seems to suggest that there's something related to maybe stress or hormones. And so just my idea is that while yes, maybe there is a little bit of something there, for the most part, I think Japan has kind of like magnified this sort of gendered difference to a level where it's just beyond anything that can be proven on a scientific level. And it's just, like not really all it's made up to be, so to speak. That's kind of my conclusion, given what I kind of read around. So I think guys feel totally fine to go eat your cakes and pies and whatever. And girls should be able to go have their unhealthy karage and ramen. But,
Ooh.
society and stereotypes, blah, 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 unfortunately.
Okay, now it's got to be karaage ramen and then chocolate cake.
Oh man, I want to.
I haven't eaten lunch yet either. This sounds good.
So yeah, so that does kind of annoy me because the you do hear that especially on Japanese TV, where Japanese TV is certainly not opposed to pushing stereotypes. So yeah, so that kind of thing does annoy me a little bit. But anyway, that is generally speaking, I think some of the things that we came up with when we started thinking about these topics. Sure, we could come up with a few more, but I think that's enough for now. We don't want to turn Ichimon Japan into just annoying things about Japan podcast. So maybe some other day we'll do a part 3. For now, that's it.
Do you want to do a revenge episode where it's things that annoy us about America?
Oh geez, I don't know. That might be more controversial. I'll put it on the list, but I won't guarantee that we'll do it. Well, maybe we can frame it from a reverse cultural shock kind of thing, right?
Oh, it would probably be best if we could get a guest then. But yeah, there's definitely things people here tell me they're very shocked when they go to America about.
Yeah, I think that's a definite. Yeah. Look forward to that at some point in the future, especially if we can have somebody else on the show.
All the clothes are so big and the English doesn't have any silly mistakes.
Yeah. It's so sad when all I see is boring, normal English.
Yeah, we're going to have our eyes open. Like that's intentional mistakes to make Japan like more entertaining and fun.
Yeah.
Or to like improve the motivation of like beginning students. Because even they're like, I can do better than that.
Anyway, so if you have any things that annoy you about Japan and any funny stories about something that you went like, why are you doing it this way? Feel free to email us at ichimon@japankyo.com. You can even record yourself and send us the audio, and maybe I can use that clip. I would certainly be open.
Oh, that would be cool.
That. Yeah, that would be fun. So if you have a funny story, you can send us the audio clip. We'll share it with everybody. Again, ichimon@japankyo.com. All right. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya. And again, we like Japan. Or at least I do. I'm still here. Tony abandoned Japan.
Well, I like it too. Bye. Hey, Tony here. So just a little reminder here at the end of the show. Everything that I produce via japankyo.com is independently produced by me. So I put in the time, the effort, the money. And although I am not complaining at all, I love all the stuff that I'm getting to do through japankyo.com, producing the podcast from beginning to end. It's great stuff. And I feel honored that I get to do a lot of stuff that I get to do. But like I said, it does take time and money. And so if you want to make sure that this is a financially viable thing for me to do, then you can do a few things to financially support the show. You can become a patron over at japankyo.com/Patreon, Or you can go to kimitodesigns.com, pick up a t-shirt or a hat or whatever else I have on sale there. Or you can do something else that won't cost you anything extra at all, but the next time you do your shopping on Amazon, just use the japankyo.com/Amazon affiliate link. And like I said, it won't cost you anything extra, but a tiny percentage of whatever you buy will come over here so that I can keep paying for hosting and doing the various things that I do here. I know times are tough, so if you can't become a patron or whatever, that is totally fine. I just hope that you are getting entertainment and information and you are just enjoying the stuff that I'm putting out. That is the ultimate reward for me. But for those of you who can afford to support the show, well then, there you go. You know what to do. All right. As always, thank you for listening and see you next time.